All right. So now we're gonna take a look at this pathway prayer process. We want to be clear about how the prayer is composed and what the elements of the prayer are. Because the way the prayer is structured tells us a lot about the organization of the record itself. Okay. So in your booklet, you have a copy of the prayer. All right. So when we look at this, first thing you notice is there are two parts, the opening and the closing. All right. We use them both. Okay. We don't just open the records and wander the streets. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this. So in our first stanza, this is our invocation. This is where we call in the assistance we seek. All right. So in the first line, we see whom we are asking to assist us. And we are inviting the forces of light. It's only the forces of light. Anything less than the forces of light are not invited. Okay? And then in our next line, we see what it is we're requesting. We are asking for, guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth. Let's be clear that we are not asking for psychic information about the future. We are not asking to be told what to do. Our relationship with the records is co-creative. It's a partnership. And so we are asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth, and then we are responsible for the action. And we want this guidance, direction, and courage for our own highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. So, if there is guidance and direction that is not really very helpful, we don't want it. Okay? So that's our first stanza. In our second stanza, this is where we consciously and deliberately align ourselves with the divine. So we are calling out to the Holy Spirit of God. This is the spirit essence of the God force. And it is the spirit essence of the God force that is recognized universally by traditions and practices throughout time. Okay? Now, in our second line, we are asking for protection. Protect me from all forms of self-centeredness. So as human beings, if there is any force that is corrupting or damaging to us, it is our own self-centeredness. So I am not talking about self-care, appropriate self-care and self-respect. What we're talking about here is self-centered fears. Okay? And those become a problem when we need to be focusing on something in our immediate world, and all we can think about is ourselves and how we're doing. All right. Because extreme or unnecessary focus on ourselves interferes with the flow of the Akashic energy. So what this looks like normally are things like perfectionism, self-doubt, performance concerns. So if you come to me for a reading, and all I can think about is, am I doing it right? Am I good enough? Am I getting the right answer? You will have a terrible reading, okay? So we ask, direct my attention to the work at hand. Because when we turn our thoughts to others and how we can be helpful, this puts our self-centered fears in their place. One of the most powerful postures in the world is the posture of service. When we are willing and available to assist others, even though we are imperfect, we are naturally granted a certain grace to be able to bring through whatever is required in the situation. Okay, so does this make sense to you? Okay, we got it. All right, good. Now we go to our third stanza. This is our stanza of intention. When we work in the records, we want to, first of all, and you look at your first line, to know myself or another in the light of the Akashic records. Okay? And the light of the Akashic records would be to be able to identify qualities of infinite wisdom, compassion, insight. And then next, we want to be able to see this individual, whether it's ourselves or someone else, through the eyes of the Lords of the Records. And that is an infinite, eternal perspective. So it's not fleeting, it's not just the moment. It's you in this moment, within the context of this lifetime, within the context of all your lifetimes. And then in our last line of our third stanza, we see, enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones have. This is really what we're seeking. So, if you come for a reading, and I give you a lot of information, but I am not very nice to you, who cares? So what we want to be able to do is to extend ourselves as human beings in a loving, supportive way. Do we have questions at this point? Yeah, oh you do. Hi, please.
老师想请问一下哦，那个我们使用目前的名字或法律名称，是指说我们可以用自己的灵魂名字吗？
No, your human name. We'll talk about those, but yeah, you want to use your, because remember, this is a very good question. The records are in the space where the spiritual and the human meet, okay? And so our entryway is through the ordinary human self, whereas our spiritual name is not anchored on the earth plane. And so our access is, it's like having a faulty connection with a computer. You know, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. It's the same principle. Very interesting. Your name right now. Whatever your name is today. Because that's the vibrational probability that you have at this point in time.